Hi everyone, welcome to our September virtual tasting. We are coming to you from the beautiful Indian Springs Vineyard here in Nevada County. Joining me this month is our Director of Wine Growing, Chris Smith. Chris, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Jody.
Chris, how long have you been with us at Bogle Vineyards?
Well, I started with Bogle Vineyards in March 1992.
1992.
So 30 years.
Wow.
In this coming March.
30 years.
I've worn a lot of hats since
I
the
like
beginning.
the one you've got on today.
Thank you. I began as a winemaker when we were a bit smaller, and that we had a small crew of production staff. Today, and for the past several years, I focus on grape sourcing, grape acquisition, which keeps myself and my assistant fairly busy in about 14 counties from the Central Coast to the North Coast to the Northern Interior and Clarksburg.
Wow. So you're on the road a lot.
I am, and I couldn't do it without Rico Franceschi's help, who also covers a lot of the territory. And we travel up into the foothills a bit, which is where we are now. Yep. Sierra Nevada foothills. Yep. We're at about 2,000 foot elevation.
Okay.
At Indian Springs Vineyard.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit later about, you mentioned the different regions you go to source our wine grapes and what you and Enrico do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, because I know that that's something we've mentioned in some of these virtual tastings, but we haven't necessarily really gotten deep into, and Chris is the man. This is what he does, so we want to hear from him and have him share what him and his team do and how that translates into really beautiful wines from Bogle. But we are here today in Indian Springs, and you mentioned it's in the Sierra Nevada foothills. So the closest town is Penn Valley, which is just outside of Grass Valley. This is an area I had not spent a lot of time in until just a few years ago.
Yeah, it's unusual in California grape growing to be this far north in the Sierra Foothills. We're north of Amador and north of El Dorado County, about 90 minutes from Clarksburg.
Okay.
Great country for Bordeaux Reds, Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Merlot. We have some really nice Zinfandel on the property.
Well, and
quite a bit of Chardonnay.
The reason why we're here is because the Juggernaut Hillside Cabernet, so much of the fruit in this wine comes from right here at this vineyard. So we're going to do a little walkabout and show you guys some of the fields later. This, from what I understand, this vineyard was originally planted in 1983 by a Bay Area construction company owner named Dennis Ball, and has been a working vineyard ever since, changed hands, had multiple owners. When did Bogle become involved with this property? About
9 years ago. I came into contact with the owner then of the property, and he was looking for a home to sell Cabernet and Merlot to, and we started buying the Hillside Cabernet from up here in these granitic mountain vineyards, and we found that small crops on stressed hills where there's not much soil do really well, and it's very concentrated fruit. One thing that's really special about Indian Springs, probably some of the name references that, there's plenty of water on the property.
Well, you can see, right? We're sitting here on this beautiful pond, and this is a natural spring. This is created by the natural reservoirs underneath the bedrock, correct?
Partly, and partly it's fed by an irrigation district that originates up towards the crest of the Sierra Nevada.
Okay.
And the canal flows through Nevada County, where we are now, and it flows right through the property. So we're sourced with a lot of our water from a local irrigation district, but it's plenty of water for this site, and it's great. That makes it what it is. It's
so beautiful here. I don't know if you guys can hear, there's a whole flock of Canadian geese on the other side of the pond. They're doing their thing. You should be able to hear them every now and then. But it's just beautiful. We have these sloping hillsides. I actually got married right here.
You did.
It was pretty
That's great.
awesome. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. Just a couple of us out here taking in the beautiful natural. I mean, it's just, there's nothing out here. It's so remote. But one of the things that is so different from our Clarksburg vineyards are the hillsides. And you mentioned it a few minutes ago, but what about those hillsides makes this Cabernet different from Cabernet that's grown in Clarksburg?
Great question. Our Juggernaut Cabernet is actually labeled hillside, and all the fruit that we bring into the blend comes from vineyards which are on diverse exposures in different regions of the state. But what makes a hillside or a mountainside special? There's a few different things. The basic quality differentiation with hillside vineyards is just stress on the vines, lack of soil. If you think about a hilltop over thousands of years, as it doesn't grow bigger, it grows smaller because it gets eroded by rain and precipitation. And soil will wash off the hillside, and eventually you may have exposed rock. But in general terms, hillside vineyards have not that much soil, not very rich, and so stressful for the vines, and it tends to make smaller crop, more concentrated crop. Another thing is having a little bit of elevation, 2,000 or 3,000 feet in the mountains, we tend to have clearer air, and I think that it makes a difference in the ripeness of mountain fruit. I think it comes on a little bit faster, but we have some very successful and again concentrated fruit from some regions in some of the vineyards that we call mountain vineyards or hillside vineyards.
Right.
And there's some hillsides at lower elevation, say the lower foothills or the north coast, and it's certainly hilly, but what's special about here is I think it's the only vineyard that we have that's a granitic soil. It's granite bedrock. It's just different from some of the clay soils that we get or the high iron soils or red dirt that we get down by Amador County.
Okay.
And it's just not very vigorous, and so that holds the vines back and keeps the fruit quality high.
That's fantastic. We actually have some clusters here that we picked a little bit ago, and you said these were Sangiovese, Chris?
That is Sangiovese.
So there are a lot of different varietals planted up here on this vineyard. How many acres are planted on the property? It's over 250?
So, yeah, just above 250, and the plantings, with one exception, are all original plantings, or they weren't all planted in the same year, but if they were planted from 81 through the late 80s. So it's a diverse selection of grape varieties. The biggest is Cabernet. We do have some Chardonnay. We have a bit of Sauvignon Blanc, but there's also Merlot, Tempranillo, Sangiovese, Barbera, and some of them are kind of small and they work into other blends.
Or wine club wines.
Yes, absolutely.
Those wine club wines that are coming to our Frontier Club or our Bandwagon Red Wine Club. So lots of fun things going on up here. It's such a beautiful day. It's really, is the climate much different from where we are down in Clarksburg, generally speaking?
Well, it's certainly colder winters. It's warm, not as hot in the summertime. The diurnal swing between daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures is more dramatic here than in Clarksburg. It comes on a little bit later. Harvest is just a little bit later than down below. Although this year we're in an early harvest season, and we're picking Cabernet up here now.
Oh, wow.
In the third week of September.
That seems early. A little bit, huh?
Yeah, it does, because often we're in Cabernet in middle of October, so early October.
Huh.
We're a couple weeks early. But
nice. No, it's so beautiful up here, and I know that people have asked me, and I'm sure they're asking you, are we seeing any problems with a lot of the fires up here in the mountains? I mean, it's been, just like the last several years have been, a really, really bad fire season for California. And so where we are here, this is the only vineyard that we own that could potentially be at risk for fire damage.
Yeah, smoke impact is real. What we call smoke taint in the industry. Smoke affected grapes. You can have, if you're close to a fire, grapes that can taste smoky, but what we've learned over the past few years with this issue is that you really need to be close to the source of the fire. And so if there's just smoke in the air, it doesn't necessarily translate to a problem in the vineyard. If we have a vineyard that's adjacent to a wildfire, we can have trouble.
Sure.
And this area is certainly at risk, and we haven't had any problem.
But there hasn't been any problem this year. The fires this year, the Dixie fire is much further north. The Caldor fire is further south.
Yeah.
So really the two big major fires that we've had this year in Northern California have kind of sandwiched this corridor. And so we've been really blessed that this area hasn't been at risk this year. So
yes, and we sample for smoke impact in-house, and so we have been testing, and we don't have any vineyards anywhere that are at risk in 2021.
That's great.
Which is good.
Knock on wood.
Last year was a little rough.
Well, Chris, let's pour our first wines. The first wine I want to pour today is the Juggernaut Pinot Noir. And this is going to lead into a great conversation, Chris, you sharing with us about our Bogle's grape sourcing program. These grapes are not from this vineyard. This wine, the Juggernaut Russian River Pinot Noir, is so named because the grapes are from the Russian River Valley, just one of the regions that we source fruit from. And cheers, by the way.
Cheers.
Oh, the breeze feels so beautiful up here. Oh, it's such a beautiful day.
So why is Bogle Winery producing fruit from Russian River Valley? In addition to our traditional label wines of Merlot and Chardonnay, Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc, we focused on Pinot Noir several years ago because there was an opportunity to find grapes before Pinot Noir was very popular, which changed in the early 2000s.
Hello, sideways.
It's become very popular. But we were able to source fruit from some high-profile vineyards in the North Coast, which happens to be Russian River Valley in Sonoma County. And we established some relationships that we still carry on today. And we've kept that appellation for some time, the Russian River Pinot. And it's some of the best Pinot Noir grown in the state of California. So
the aromatics are beautiful.
It's a concentrated, fairly deeply colored Pinot Noir.
Yes.
Pinot Noir is not the darkest red wine, and some Europeans can be fairly pale in color. But for Pinot Noir, this is pretty dark. And
well, and that's why it's in our Juggernaut brand. So Juggernaut, people always ask me, you know, why Juggernaut? Why wouldn't you just put this in the Bogle bottles as well? But we really, when we started bringing in the Hillside Cabernet, that was when you and our winemaker Eric really felt like we had the potential to create something so different because the fruit quality was exceptional.
Right, we wanted to produce a North Coast and Northern Interior Sierra Nevada Hillside Cabernet that was at this price point, and we started with the Juggernaut Cabernet, and it's become a very successful product line for Bogle. I always say it's our secret menu because it doesn't say Bogle on it. It
doesn't say Bogle, and people always want to know why. You know, why doesn't it say Bogle? Why don't you have Bogle on the label? And I always tell people because, you know, we've made wines for a long time. We've made really, really great value priced wines, right? In the $10 to $12 range. And sometimes when that's what you do, that's what people expect. And so you get a little pigeonholed. And so we chose to not put Bogle on the label of our Juggernaut wines because we wanted people to look at it with completely fresh eyes. The labels of these wines are absolutely dynamic and gorgeous and eye-catching. The bird of prey on the Pinot Noir is an osprey, which is indigenous, to the Russian River Valley. If you've ever seen an osprey in action, in flight, I mean, they are beautiful, beautiful creatures. And so I love that's been kind of transferred onto the Pinot label. And I think the Predators, the big, fierce looking artwork, emulates what's in the bottle. It's fierce, it's brave, it's bold, it's full-bodied, and they're just really, really exceptional wines. So well done, Chris. This is beautiful.
Kudos to the winemaking team. And we do continue to look for fierce and bold vineyards to expand that program.
Yes. I heard a little rumor there might be a Juggernaut white wine in the works.
That would be fantastic.
I think that'd be so fun to try something, a white wine companion to these beautiful reds would be really, really fun. So Chris, going back to how we source our wine grapes. So you mentioned some of the other regions, but so we're talking, Monterey, we're talking Central Coast, Mendocino areas. I mean, how far and wide do we reach? I mean, do we go outside the state of California? I mean, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask Chris.
That's a good question. In the early times at Bogle, Bogle was a vineyard company first, and then the winery came second. And so the Bogle family started making wines from their own grapes solely from the Clarksburg region. And that's still our greatest growing region overall, is the Clarksburg area for both Chardonnay and Merlot, Petit Syrah, Sauvignon Blanc.
1,600 acres, right? Give or take, in the Clarksburg area.
Right. And so as our brand grew, we decided to pursue fruit from different areas and not keep it just solely estate. So we began finding Chardonnay fruit towards the coast, more plantings of Chardonnay in Clarksburg, some Sonoma County Chardonnay, some Monterey County Chardonnay, which leads to a little bit more diverse blend when you're putting different components from different regions together. With Merlot, Cabernet, and Pinot, we've also gone towards the northern interior and the Central Coast near San Luis Obispo County. Zinfandel, we've purchased mostly fruit. We don't grow much Zinfandel under the Bogle vineyards, as sourcing out of Bogle vineyards, but we have many grower partners that we source with in Amador County and then the Lodi growing area.
Because we're looking for those old vine vineyards.
Old vine Zinfandel, older head train fields. So depending on the variety, the North Coast, Sonoma, Mendocino, Lake County, a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet, Merlot, San Luis Obispo County, more whites, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, a bit of Cabernet, and then the Monterey region is Chardonnay and Pinot Noir for our traditional line. And so that's brought us to a pretty widespread footprint of sourcing grapes in the central and northern coastal areas of California and Clarksburg and Foothills and up here in the mountain vineyards of Indian Springs.
So one of the things that I want to point out is that this is an estate vineyard. Bogle, actually, we own this property now, where it was purchased and developed and traded hands for years, but how long ago was it that we actually purchased it from the previous owner? Probably
I think it was
5
years ago when Bogle purchased the Indian Springs property and vineyard. The vineyard land was already established clearly. We haven't expanded on it, but I will say that the vineyard's looking better than it has in my 8 or 9 years of
working with it,
being affiliated with it and buying grapes here. The farming is improved. Bogle's managing it. They can give it more attention. The viticulture staff up here is very diligent, and it's a good season. Vineyards are looking great.
So that's what you do, Chris. So your job is to work with the crew up here to make sure that the vines are Bogle quality and that the fruit, when it comes into the winery, is the way we expect it to be. And you work with not just our vineyard teams, but you work with the growers of the Sauvignon Blanc in Lake County or the Lodi Zinfandel, so that when the grapes come into the winery, they are Bogle quality fruit. You've been working with those grapes the whole season. Nothing's a surprise, right?
It's true. I like to say that great vineyards are generally not site specific. That's certainly a big part of it, but it's grower specific, because if you don't have a diligent grower who's growing for quality, anything can happen on any site. So we do have protocol that we insist is developed and utilized in vineyards that are coming to Bogle, and so we give guidance to the growers that we contract with regarding crop load, canopy management, leaf management. A lot of it's sustainable farming is very important to Bogle, water usage, excessive fertilization,
Sure.
etc. So we do give some direction and management to each of our grower partners, and there are dozens.
That's fantastic. Well, going back to the Pinot, I think we paired it with a dessert in this pack. We created a plum galette recipe, galette.
Both.
There you go. I actually made several. My plum tree this year was crazy. I probably still have a bazillion up there. We couldn't pick enough. There were so many plums, and I have 2 different varietals of plum trees, and both just were so prolific this year. So we thought we'd pair the Pinot with that plum galette, because I'm getting some plum and some bright cherry on this. Really,
Absolutely.
really
Sounds
pretty.
Delicious.
Really, really pretty wine. Just to talk a little bit specifically, oh, there go those geese. Just to talk specifically, real quickly, about the Pinot Noir. It was aged in new and used French oak for about 12 months. So you've got a combination of oak types, and just really, really beautiful wine. Gluten-free and vegan friendly. So a really easy wine to enjoy. I wonder if now might be a good time to show a little video about where we are today. We have a little video that we put together several years ago that gives people kind of the bird's eye view of Indian Springs. Take a look.
Well, Indian Springs is a 230-acre vineyard located at the base of the foothills. As you spend time here looking at the vineyard, what you'll see is the road directions change. You have to go with topography. So because of that, there's a lot of complexity in the blocks. This ranch defies any kind of simple process, but usually a hillside vineyard does have that challenge. We have different elevation changes. There's hills. It has a different aspect to the sun. There's areas that are just so rocky that they plant it around the rocks. There's no simple way to farm a place like this. Hillside vineyards require a certain kind of commitment to the details. Attention to detail ends up making the fruit better. But when you get into a hillside, you're adding even more variables. What we look for is a balanced canopy that's not layered with a bunch of leaves in it by denying, water and nutrients to some level. And then the light comes in and strikes the fruit from all angles. So the ripening's different, the flavors are different, and really the way we farm it's different. My vision of hillside vineyards is they take more determination, expertise, and money. The blocks that are the most challenging, they're the ones that make the wines that stand alone.
All right, so now that you've seen what this beautiful vineyard looks like from the bird's eye view and on the quad and just kind of seeing the terrain and the territory, let's taste a wine that has grapes from here in it. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna get rid of my Pinot over here. Chris, a little Hillside
Juggernaut
Cabernet.
Cabernet.
Thank you.
Hillside.
The color on it immediately is just beautiful. Dark red, brick red cherries. Oh, and the nose, it's gorgeous. Really, really pretty. So when we first started bringing the Hillside Cabernet in from this vineyard, it was you and Eric really both remarked on how it was exceptional. The quality was amazing, the concentration was amazing. It just had some very, very unique qualities to it. And I know for a couple years it actually made its way into our Reserve Cabernet that was a wine club and wine shop exclusive. And then it made its way into our Reverence, which we still make today. But we wanted to create something that was more widely available to everyone. And the Juggernaut wines are available nationwide at different retailers. But let's talk about so it's not just Hillside Cabernet from Indian Springs. There's other vineyards that go in this wine as well.
Most of the fruit that goes into Bogle's Juggernaut Cabernet is North Coast, Sonoma County, Hillside fruit, a little bit of Central Coast, Hillside fruit, and then a big slug of Indian Springs Cabernet from up here in the mountains. In my opinion, the best of any wine type needs to be true to varietal. And you don't want a Cabernet that tastes like a Zinfandel. This Cabernet really shows a lot of black cassis.
Yep.
Lots of concentrated cherry fruit. It's just a complex, age-worthy, fruit-forward, true-to-type, big, bold Cabernet. And it's really been embraced out in the marketplace as well.
People have really enjoyed this wine. When you say age-worthy, I don't know how you do that. I can't age them. They get open pretty quick at my place.
That's right. It's this wine tends to be released at about the 2.5, 3 year age mark. And I think most wines are purchased to be consumed that week or that month. But reality is this wine would be a completely different animal, if you will, 10 years in. I don't save much wines myself. I have a couple cases worth of wines that I do cellar, but it's fun, and if you can,
maybe I'll have to hide a bottle somewhere, and
right.
like a time capsule, right? Bury it in the backyard.
That's right.
And then dig it up 10 years from now. That's the only way I'm not going to drink it.
Exactly.
Well, this is really lovely. So you mentioned that there were some grapes from the Sonoma hillsides, as well as the Central Coast, and a little bit of Livermore as well. From what I understand, there's some hillside Cabernet vines in Livermore. But I want to, we've talked about this before. Every single one of these vines, when they come in, every single one of these grape loads, when they come in, is crushed, vented, aged, and oaked separately.
That's correct. One of the basic tenets of winemaking at Bogle Winery that we've done for decades is keep all small lots separate, small or big, all grower lots separate, so we can vinify the wines and we can evaluate each individual block and grower. That's not common in the industry, especially in any volume. So that's one of the most basic things in our winemaking process. So this Indian Springs fruit will be kept separate from Sonoma County Cabernet fruit, which will be kept separate from Central Coast Cabernet fruit by grower. And then we can evaluate and determine what program it's going to go into. Of course, these grapes are targeted for the Juggernaut. But we do have some Alexander Valley fruit that's really exceptional. Pretty high up on the hillside north of Healdsburg. We've got some in the hills in Contra Costa County that you were referencing in Livermore. And those vineyards were targeted for being included in the Juggernaut program.
Right.
You know, one other aspect about grape growing that's important to Bogle is our sustainability program.
You mentioned that earlier, yeah. I mean, and we've talked about that before, but I'd love to hear from you because you're in the vineyard on a daily basis.
Well, what is sustainability? It's about improved stewardship of the land. It's responsible water usage, correct and judicial use of fertilizers when required. It reflects on social aspects of it, a living wage for vineyard workers, and not to mention particularly in our drought-stricken environment, again, water usage and drip irrigation and so forth. So we follow and insist that our growers follow a program called California Rules, which is a accredited program which is monitored and directed somewhat by Bogle Winery and somewhat by the California Rules program itself.
It's a very rigorous third-party accreditation. I mean,
Correct.
every single field lot is audited every single year. I mean, that's amazing. That's a lot of paperwork.
It is, and we pay a premium to each grower for participating in this program, which today with Bogle it's mandatory, but we're at about 97%.
That's amazing.
All sustainably farmed. So that's
And that
a way
includes
for Bogle to give it back.
that includes our outside growers. I mean, I want to be very clear. So not only
Right.
is it our estate fruit that is farmed sustainably, but it's mandatory for our grower partners to be a part of it as well.
That's correct.
And 97% of all the fruit that goes into Bogle's wines is farmed sustainably.
And that remaining
that's
3%
remarkable.
is going to be.
We're working on it. Chris is
we're
working on it really hard. He's trying to talk him into it.
That's
well,
right.
and from what I understand, some of the folks who are not accredited by the California Rules program, they are accredited by other programs because the programs, of course, aren't universal, right? So if you're accredited by a program maybe in the Sonoma area or the Central Coast area, it doesn't automatically mean that you're also accredited by the one that we work with. So some of them, I understand, are farmed sustainably. They just don't have the right paperwork.
Yeah, when we chose one of many sustainability programs to partner with, we chose one that we felt was a higher bar
Yes.
rather than just a rubber stamp. And we've got most of our growers on board, and any new grower needs to embrace that sustainability
It's fantastic.
ethic.
Well, you know, it's important for us as a family business. You know, we are 6th generation farmers, 3rd generation wine growers, and we know that for the next generation to continue to have the opportunities we have to farm this way. Otherwise, the viability for farming quality fruit won't be there. I mean,
That's right.
bottom line, I mean, if we want to continue what we've done, then it's important to us. It's the right thing to do. Chris, actually, I want to call out, you know, so you're one of a few employees at Bogle who worked with both our parents and have worked with our parents and worked with us as well. You worked with my dad, Chris, who, when you came on in '92, was farming, was doing all our farming. And you worked with my mom, Patty, who was doing the book work. But then when my dad passed away a few years later, she took on the business in earnest. So you worked with both of them.
That's right, and I had the privilege to work with Patty and Chris for quite some time, and learned a lot from both of them. And I think that their involvement in the early years really made a groundwork, a foundation, if you will, for the culture at the winery and the work ethic at the winery. And we certainly wouldn't be anything close to what we are today at Bogle Winery without their leadership and direction back in the early days.
I remember, being young, and the offices were in our house when you started working for us. I mean, you'd be at the kitchen table a lot of mornings. when I was home when you started. I think I was in college, and so I was coming home for the summers. Everything was just so busy at the house when I would come home for the summer. Phones ringing at 6 in the morning, fax machines going off. Mom's taking
yeah, what is
fax.
that?
I know.
Fax.
Mom was taking orders. Your kids were little.
Yeah, my son was born in the house you grew up in.
Yes, Chris, that's right. You and she, when you came to work for us, you moved into the original shop house, which is the house my grandfather built for my grandmother. And then my dad and mom lived there and raised us for some time.
Right.
And then built the house that I'm raising my kids in now. Boy, it's like really, it's like musical houses at Bogle.
We lived in that shop house for 6 years.
Oh my goodness.
Before we moved
and you
to
brought
the other
Jeremy
side of the
home
island.
to that house. Oh,
That's right.
And now you have grandbabies.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And,
that's so fantastic.
So it's a big family affair for sure. And of course, you know, as we grow and expand, things are different, but we always have that core history that so many of us can refer back to.
I totally agree. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for joining me here today up in Indian Springs. I think that's a great way to kind of say thank you to everybody for joining us, for watching. Thank you for checking out the Juggernaut wines. I hope you've enjoyed them. Our next virtual tasting is going to be all about Phantom. We're going spooky.
Phantom
Chardonnay and Phantom Red Blend. And we're going to be back at the winery on October 28th.
So more ghost stories?
More ghost stories. We have some really fun ghost stories, you know. So last year during Phantom season, I just call it Phantom season. It's not even Halloween anymore in my house. It's Phantom season. We actually had a contest to see for people to write an original ghost story, and we had over 100 applicants. We selected one and we turned it into a movie.
Oh,
it's
excellent.
So fun. So we're going to be sharing that at our next virtual tasting. And if you want more information, if you're an aspiring writer and you want to give it a go, or your family has a really fantastic ghost story that you think the world needs to hear, go to phantomwines.com for information about the ghost story contest. There's a cash prize too. It's like $5,000.
And a movie.
And maybe a movie. If it's good enough, we'll make a movie out of it.
Didn't something go to a movie competition in recent past?
Well, so we're going to be sharing this movie called Flora's Place by Darylyn Anderson. Hi, Darylyn, if you're watching. She was the winner of our contest last year. She wrote this fantastic story, and we made the movie, and we're going to be premiering it at the Austin Film Festival in October. So lots of fun things happening. So make sure you tune in October 28th. But thank you, Chris, for being here today.
Thank you.
Cheers to Indian Springs and the Juggernaut. And
cheers.
Thank you for watching today, you guys. Have a great day.